I'm going to share my screen, I think. Hmm. All righty. Can you guys see that?
Yep, I'm
Good.
seeing it.
So Frank or Ruth, would one of you guys monitor the
You
chat
got to
for me,
you got
please?
to turn on the recording, Jeff.
I think Steve turned on the recording.
Is it? Oh, okay, I didn't see.
Yeah. So we're being recorded, just so you know. So no foul language.
I
How
guess I
do I,
better leave the meeting then,
how do I advance this?
But I like birds. No.
My screen's not advancing.
but bump.
Hmm.
Got to throw in the dad jokes.
I didn't even understand that one, Frank. So there we go. All righty, contract to close. Contract to close, it's one thing to get a listing, right? And it's another thing to get it under contract. Well, what's the hardest part many times? Hmm? Anybody have any ideas? Maybe getting it to close, right? Have you guys ever lost a deal? Have you been under contract and lost a deal? Anybody?
Yes?
Nobody.
No, I have.
Have you? Well, at least we got one person that's being honest, right? So the contract to close, in my view, is really where a lot of our skill comes in, right? It's where you can circumvent finding yourself involved in a lawsuit, right? For something that you did or didn't do correctly or incorrectly. And it's the only way you're going to get paid. And one of the things that is Elizabeth Jolin on this call? I don't see her. One of the things that she and I were talking about over this last week with one of her deals is taking a leadership role in getting this closing to happen, right? I mean, you'd like to get it to under contract and then just hand it off to the title company, right? I mean, that'd be the best thing, best way to do, right? Don't you think? That'd be the easiest thing for you. But a lot of times that doesn't work. And uh, so, Diane Corliss, are you on the call? No. Caitlin, can you
Yes, I'm here.
think back in your
Yep,
time and
yep.
give us an example of the contract to close process in which you've taken initiative, provided a leadership role, and done something that has saved the deal. Can you think of anything, or can anybody else think of anything?
Oh, you really got to think out of the box.
Yeah, you do, right? So we went through this whole scenario this week on a deal where there were two lawyers involved and nobody was getting anything done. There was a title company, there was a buyer's attorney, and there was a seller's attorney. There was a selling associate that was not contributing, and it all ended up being the listing agent that had to really keep everybody going, and this is a Lexington Avenue in New York City attorney, real estate attorney. So think about now, right now, how you would rate yourself on the job that you do between the time you get that offer and you get under contract and when you close. Think about how you would, on a scale of 1 to 5, you give yourself a 5, like you're a strong leader, You let everybody know what's going on. You hold people accountable for deadlines and tasks. You get ahead of things instead of always, trying to catch up, right? So think about that. So what we're going to do today, and this is kind of an interactive thing, and we've got 53 minutes, and we're going to stop no matter where we're at because I want to value your time. But the 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 specific goals, right, that you have are first getting the contract signed, passing the inspections, dealing with any appraisal issues, making sure the financing is locked down, and then get ready for closing. So those are the things we're going to think about. And I'd like you guys to chime in a lot and ask questions and give us something to talk about other than just me talking, right? So Titan Talk is I took some training materials from the brand, and I took some training materials that I had developed, and I took some training materials that our company developed and kind of melded them all into this. And uh, this particular Titan Talk is from Coldwell Banker University, and supposedly titans of listings, right? Strong listing agents, uh, you know, this is their thought. And they say the best thing I can do is communicate well, right? During the process of the listing before you go under contract, communicate well, right? I meet or talk with clients at least weekly, along with sending email updates about showings and web traffic. I want them to be informed about what's going on when it's time to act. Time to act meaning what? Sign a contract, right? So these folks that wrote this are trying to keep the fire stoked, right? With good information and an open communication style. So when it's time to sign, they can get them to act, right? So the first thing I want to talk about a little bit is when you present an offer. And Naira, I know you and I have been through the offer presentation training that we did, right? I think that has helped you, right? Or
Oh
did
my
help.
God, immensely,
So
immensely.
here are my thoughts on preparing to present an offer, right? So if you have anything else that you like to do when you prepare to present an offer, put it in the chat or shout it out, right? So you could probably guess that it's always best to try to have a face-to-face conversation with someone, right? And as a strong listing agent, if you set the expectation that when we get an offer, you're going to have to come in, right? You get them to come in, right? Come in to do business. They're coming in to do business. That's what they're there to do, is to do business. You get them in your domain, right? You're going to want to print out the contract, highlight with a yellow highlighter everywhere they need to initial and sign, right? Keep track of the offer deadline, right? Talk to the selling agent, who's also the buyer's agent. You guys get confused about that a lot, but the technical term for the person that represents the buy side is called the selling agent. Uh, get a pre-approval or a proof of funds, right? Work up a net sheet. We've got a net sheet inside of Loop. We've got a net sheet inside of the Moxie CMA tool. Okay. You want to revisit all the comparable sales. You want to get all the comparable sales that have happened, over the last whatever time period you're going, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, 2 months, whatever. You want to know what's going on. So when they ask you a question, you can answer. You want to revisit all those with them if you need to. You want to gather everything that you've done, right? You want to know what you've done for open houses. How many people have been in? How many agents have shown the house? How many online showings you've had? How many first show, actual person in the house showings? How many second showings, right? You want to gather your work product, everything that you've done up to that point to get them to that point, so you have that as proof of what you've done, right? You may want to think about coming up with a number about how much it costs them to hold the house, right? So is Caroline on this call right now?
Yes, I'm here.
Caroline, what did we determine it was costing your seller each month to hold the house that they own now?
Well, it was $500 a day, 12,000 a
Yeah,
month.
right? 12,000, about 12,000 a month. That's the holding cost. That's the cost of that $2 million that they've got locked up, you know? It's the utilities, it's the taxes, the insurance. So every day that goes by, 500 bucks flies out of their wallet. Every day they continue to own the house, it's about 500 bucks every day, whether they sell it, I mean, up until the point they sell it, 500 bucks a day. So you may want to have that kind of thought in your mind. That might help you. And then you want to give them the options, right? So what are their options when they get an offer? They can accept it, they can reject it, or they can counter it. And rejection is not an option. You don't want them to reject it. And we'll talk about that in a sec, right? So you want to capitalize on the fact that you've brought them an offer. You want to make a big show of it. You want to impress them with everything that you have that you're showing them that has gotten us up to this point. And it's kind of like a little big deal, right? So once you get the offer, there are three options. Like I said, you can accept it, right? So congratulations, your hard work and mine has paid off. Let's talk about what happens next if they accept it, right? If they counter it, realize that once they counter it, they essentially somewhat have rejected that offer. And when they counter it, all bets are off. They counter it, the buyer may walk away, right? They may walk away, or they might not. So really, there's a lot of risk involved in countering an offer, right? So if it makes sense for them to accept it and you can get them to accept it, don't piddle over very small things. Try to get them to accept it. So let's talk about rejection. If it's too low, if there are unworkable contingencies, if there are deadlines that they can't possibly meet, there's no way to get around it, right? They may want to try to reject it. Or if it's really low, they may tell you what. What are they going to tell you if it's really super low, Naira?
I thought I wasn't supposed to be used bad language.
I'm offended. Oh, I'm so offended.
Oh, offended. Oh, okay.
These people don't have any idea who I am or how great this house is. I'm offended. Tell them to, right? There you go, the F word. Tell them to, right? Anybody ever heard that? I've heard it.
Oh, yeah, I've heard it.
So you don't want to do that, right? You want to get them to at least stay in the game. If you can't get them to stay in the game, then you can't do your job. So even if you can get some kind of a counter with something that'll work. So if the house is $1 million, maybe you counter at 995 or 999 or 999, 999 and 99 cents. You got to keep the ball in play in order to get it to work. And one of the things that I have learned at the MFO trainings that I've been to is in the blue there, it says if the seller refuses to counter, try saying this, right? So I'm talking to Naira and I say, Naira, you say you're going to refuse to counter. let me tell you, if the buyer made an offer, that means they like your property, Naira. Okay, can you agree on that?
Yep,
If you
absolutely.
don't, if you don't counter, that means you don't want to sell it. I brought deals together that were way further apart than this, right? I brought deals together that were much further apart than this. I brought deals together that are whatever, right? So you just kind of try that. Uh, has anybody ever had a seller reject an offer, just flat out reject it?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah. And ever since I've learned about using this language, I almost look forward to them rejecting the offer because it gives me an opportunity then to say, I've brought deals together that were way further apart than this. Now let me do what you hired me to do.
yeah, absolutely. So we've trained on this before. We presented this at the sales meeting. We've done one-on-ones on our old Tuesday role play sessions. 7-step to an effective offer presentation. Problem that a lot of us have, and I used to do the same thing, is I'd say over the phone, "Hey, we got an offer." They'd say, "How much?" I'd say 500,000. They'd say, "No." Right? We didn't even talk about the offer. All I did was tell them the price. And what'd that do? That made them mad. And then it went south from there sometimes. Sometimes not, but sometimes. Right? So the first step, and this is just a real quick review. I wanted you to have this in case you forgot about it or didn't have it. We're not going to role play this, but you want to reestablish the seller's motivation, remind them why they want to move, refresh it in their mind, make sure they're still on the same page. Like you guys are moving because you want to be close to your grandkids by Christmas, right? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Number two, find out from the selling agent, the one representing the buyer, what the buyer's qualifications are, right? Share what information you can about the buyer's background, their stability, seriousness, and their capability to close. Now, remember, if you're a transaction broker, what can't you share, right? You can't share their motivation. If you're a transaction broker, remember the 3 things you can't disclose as a transaction broker from one party to the other are motivation, right? What's the second one? Price. If they're willing to accept a price or pay a price different from what's being offered. Or number 3 is what? Financing terms. So just be careful about when you're talking about details of somebody's motivation. If it's the 2 Schmidt agents, including you working with yourself, just be careful with that, right? Number 3, discuss the deposit. So Naira, we've got $10,000 down 3 days after the effective date, and the minute the inspection deadline's over, they're going to put another 50,000 down, right? So we talk motivation, qualifications, deposits, and then we read the contract from the bottom up, right? So we talk about the fact that this offer is being presented by Caitlin Wendt, who is a great agent, expert, marathon. I've done deals with her before, right? You read anything you fill in, you fill in from the bottom up. So you talk about the inspection period, the financing contingency, right? You talk about that. You talk about the closing date. You talk about how long the offer's for, and then the offer is for 500,000. You finally tell them. And then right away, you take that net sheet, you throw that in front of them and say, 500,000, here's what you're going to net, right? Right away, right into that before they can even say no, here's what you're going to net. Get them looking at that. Re-review the offers benefits about the buyer's suitability and capability, about other terms that are important, and then just ask them for the signature, right? So if you use this process every time, it gives you a structure and it focuses on what's positive about it, and you're more likely to probably be successful, right? Anybody have any questions about that? Okay.
Dev, I don't have a question, but I just would like to say that if there's anybody on the call that has not done that process, I just can't tell you how valuable it is because yeah, since I've done that with you, I've used it, I think, 3 times, and each time it gets easier. Although each time I do practice a little bit ahead of time, because it's more about it was my anxiety thinking that the seller of the property really just wants to know the price, and so it was my anxiety. That's what I battle going into it. But if you practice it and you are comfortable with it, it's amazing how smoothly it can go.
Good, thank you. So Ruth is the expert on negotiation. I'm not taking that away. I just wanted to give you some ideas of things. If you did need to counter, right, to try to find out what possibly you could counter on, right? And I should have taken 6 out. I should have removed that. I forgot to remove that. So disregard that. That's more of a buyer's side thing, that Dear John letter. So, what's more important to the buyer? Is it more important for them to get the price they want or some kind of a concession? Say, sometimes closing cost concessions from the seller to the buyer are more important than the price for the buyer if they don't have any cash, right? Think about repair items, price terms, accelerate, delay closing. What's going on with any utility assessments, inspection periods, more money, less money in escrow. Convert that payment in your mind for that buyer, even as a listing agent, to being, this extra money is only $20 a month or $5 a week or whatever. Send comps back to the buyer's agent. Give them all the ammunition they need to present and support your seller's position. Okay. The other thing that Ruth is the expert on is manage multiple offers. So I'm not going to go into that much. I'm just going to leave this slide in here so that you can look at it if you need it in future for a reference, right? There are different options that you can use to navigate multiple offers. And this is going to outline those for you. And then there are some thoughts about how to coach your client through multiple offers, right? Brief them on the market factors. Explain that the highest price offer may not necessarily be the best one, right? And then remind them about backup offers. And I want to spend some time on backup offers. Has anybody ever used a backup offer? Yeah, everybody's shaking their head.
Yeah,
Backup offers are a great way for you to be able to really do a good job for your seller. So, when I was a long time ago was selling a house, probably 2002 or 2000, and I got my listing, and I'm a big shot, and it's like 180,000 in Golden Gate City in Naples, and I get an offer and go under contract. It's got a financing contingency, and I kept getting delayed. The selling agent kept saying, "Well, we need more time for the loan. We need more time for the loan." I go back to my seller and say, "Yeah, she says it's good. They just need more time for their loan." Turns out that they never did get the loan, right? And during the time when it was under contract, I had somebody that I knew, liked, and trusted say they wanted to put a backup offer in it. And I said, without even asking my seller, "Oh, we don't need it. We're good." I just unilaterally made that decision for the seller. Didn't even tell them. Didn't think I didn't have anybody tell me that how to deal with this. So ended up what happened was the deal didn't close. The listing expired. I lost the listing. somebody else got the listing, probably the one that made the backup offer. I screwed myself and the seller, right? I damaged both of us by not knowing what I was doing and not knowing the importance of a backup offer. So if you're going to use a backup offer, you don't handwrite it, you check the box and attach addenda W, right? We got into a big stink about a year ago in the Key Largo office with an agent that had a backup addendum just like this. We had the primary buyer, it was our listing, and we had a buyer that was going to buy it, and we had somebody else, I think it was Michelle Rush from Location, came in with an offer, backup offer, fully executed backup addendum. And the misstep we made was we notified Michelle that the primary first deal is dead, but we didn't have the contract cancellation signed by the original buyer. And then there was threat of a lawsuit with that original buyer, right, that wouldn't sign the release. So now what have we done? What are we under now? What have we done? How many contracts do we have in play?
You are under contract twice.
We're
Twice.
screwed.
Absolutely.
We're screwed, buddy. I mean,
Yep.
how do you deal with that, right? Why did we do that? Because we didn't pay attention. We didn't know. We didn't know enough, right? And it says right in here, it talks about if the prior executed contract is terminated and seller delivers written notice of termination to buyer, then that backup moves into first. Well, we gave the backup buyer notice, but we just didn't have the first contract canceled. So that was a problem. Turned out that we were able to get it out or get it all resolved, but nobody ever knew the mistake that we made. We were able to keep clear of that whole other issue, right? So you got to be very careful when you're doing that. Anybody have any questions about backups?
Yeah, can I just went through this with an agent yesterday, going through this. Jeff is absolutely right. You have to have, because in my next session is going to be about different addendas that we use, and this is one of them. You have to have the release and cancellation. But the thing you have to remember is once that is delivered to you, okay, and I used the term delivered. So the release and cancellation was signed yesterday, but they delivered it to you today. Today becomes your effective date for that backup offer. So from that date forward, that's when everything starts. Escrow deposits, closings, inspections, loan approval, that becomes your effective date. Okay, so that's the only point I want to make.
Yeah, good point. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Second thing, I see this all the time, and I'm telling you these things that I see when I do the compliance on your deals, and I know that I've gotten burned or had agents have gotten burned for doing similar stuff, and the post-closing occupancy agreement is an area that there's risk for you, right? So why would I want to recommend a seller occupy the property after closing? What would be one reason? I'll throw something out. What if the loan is in shambles all the way up till the very end, right? What if there's a chance that the buyer is not going to close? Has anybody ever had a situation where the seller has moved out, lock, stock, and barrel, completely moved out on their way to, their new life in Amarillo, Texas, and the closing falls through? Holy crap, that's a problem, especially if they're headed there to buy another house. Or
That
even
happened to
worse,
me back in Philadelphia, so and it was the worst experience of my life.
or they're going to buy another house on the same day, right? Then they're stuck in a moving truck. Guess who they asked to pay for that? Right? It's not the title company, it's you and Brian. Go
Mm.
ahead.
I've had a seller stay several weeks longer just because she was older and needed assistance to move out. And the buyers agreed to allow her to stay there until, while her niece and nephew came to help her get all her belongings out.
Yeah,
It worked out.
yeah. So bottom line is, I see you guys write in all the time in the additional terms. Seller to, keep possession of the house for a week after closing. Don't do that, right? Don't do that. Do this. Use addenda U,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see in highlighted post-closing occupancy agreement. That's what you want, right?
Mhm.
And you don't write that,
Nope.
right? Who do you get to write that, Elizabeth?
The attorney.
Get the attorney to, attorneys
Yeah.
love to do that.
That's what we had.
They already have them in their file. All they got to do is
Yeah.
press the button and pops out, right?
Yeah, we have
Handles,
those.
it handles things like if somebody refuses to move out, or if somebody, gets injured on the property, who's responsible for it, or if the whole place burns down, right? All those things that you don't think about. That's why we always use a post-closing occupancy agreement, and we don't ever write that in, right?
Mm-mm.
The only kind of lease that you can legally do is a Supreme Court approved FAR bar lease, right? And I wouldn't recommend that, because if it's short term, how about all that minimum rental period and sales tax problem? Don't even go there, right? Don't, unless it's for more than 6 months, right? So anybody have any questions about that? So, all right, so once the parties have signed the contract and all of the addenda are signed, everything that's checked off in the additional addenda has to be fully executed. Monroe County local rider, appraisal contingency, condo rider, whatever it is, it's all got to be done for you to have a complete document. At that point in time, you're going to take charge. You got to take charge of the process, because nobody else will, right? And your seller hired you, and you're the best at what you do. So be a leader and take charge, right? So set up calendar reminders and calendar events. Look at your listing contract and see when your expiration date is. If the expiration date occurs before the closing date, extend the expiration date in the MLS to a couple days after the closing date. The MLS rules allow you to do that. Our listing contract gives you the authority to do that, and it will keep your seller from being bombarded, right, by people, soliciting their expired listing when their listing is actually under contract. And when that happens, it's going to make it look like you don't know what you're doing, right? So change that expiration date, right?
Jeff, do we have to get the seller to sign a form to
No,
do that?
no, no.
Just,
They've
Not
already
that.
signed, we've got full authority to do that. If you read the listing contract,
Yep.
you don't have to get them to sign anything,
No.
right? You just make the change, right? You should already have this stuff, but if you don't, you got to get your seller prepared to give everything they have. The more they have, the easier everything's going to work. The quicker everything will be done, the fewer roadblocks and speed bumps they'll hit. Get the elevation certificate, the survey, the wind mit report, any current wind flood homeowner policy, what do you call them, those binder sheets or whatever, where it shows what the coverage is and the price. Get the previous title policy. If you're working a condominium, God bless you, because there's so much stuff. That's a whole nother class, right? But it's your responsibility as the listing agent to get those condo docs together. It's actually the seller's responsibility. you put that on them and you hold them accountable to get all this stuff, right? Because it's going to help them. Uh, you know, contract critical dates checklist. There's a form in here. I see a lot of you guys have your own custom communications that you send to your sellers about deadlines. A lot of people do a great job on that. Let everybody know who the parties are and who's doing what. I mean, tell them when stuff is due. Agree on it. Make sure the selling agent and you agree on all the dates, right? So there's no confusion, right? And on the flip side, if you're a selling agent working with a sloppy listing agent and they're not doing it, well, you take a leadership role as a selling agent or buyer's agent and you do the same thing, right? So the inspections, right? Titan talk. 10% of my listings fall through. 80% are from inspections. Has anybody ever had a inspection blow a deal?
Yes.
What happened?
The home inspector, basically made it seem like you needed a hard hat to even walk through the property, that it was falling apart, and
Mhm.
and really he turned them off
Yeah.
to the property.
Shame on them. That's not really their role, but you know, so you've got to prepare your seller of that possibility, right? So you want to try to get your seller to fix any problems, right? Before you even put the home on the market if they can. Some agents that I've worked with in the past will have their sellers do pre-listing inspections. On the bottom here, there's a note that says problem when you do that is, if there are major issues identified that the seller was not aware of, now they own it and they have to disclose it. So think about that. But I highlighted in yellow here, I think good wording for you guys to use, right? If the inspection is getting in the way of your closing, you can tell the seller, hey, fix the problem and keep the buyer, or keep the problem and lose the buyer, right? I mean, that like makes perfect sense, right? Fix the problems and keep the buyer, or keep the problems and lose the buyer, right? So walk through that inspection report with your seller, and you should have a good rule of what are real issues and what is nonsense. So make sure the inspector has accessibility and utilities. Make arrangements for pets. The Coldwell Banker threw this in. I never heard of this. Use Drano to free all drains. I'm not sure if I agree with pouring Drano
No.
down somebody else's drain.
No, not Drano, no.
I probably wouldn't do that, but change any burnout light bulbs, make sure they can get in the attic or under the house, or move the garbage cans or whatever needs to be done, right? So let me ask you another question. Do most buyers attempt to renegotiate the contract to ask for repairs or money?
My experience, yes.
Yeah. Nair, I think you're the only one that is able to speak this morning, and I appreciate you playing along with me.
Sorry, I'll
Right.
stay off mute.
All right, good. So, right.
I
So
have. I've had that.
you have,
So
and I
it's
appreciate that. I
give
appreciate that.
concessions. Yeah.
So, yeah, so they're always going to ask for it, right? We had somebody one time that you couldn't believe what they asked for, right? I mean, it was crazy. So what happens then, right? So what, who, how, and when, right? So what repairs are being negotiated? You got to know that. You've got to determine who's going to be responsible for completing or paying for it, how the price is going to be impacted by it, and what the deadline for having this stuff done is, right? So there are options for any issue. Your job is to help the parties come to terms with what's acceptable for them. So, number one, the sellers can make all the repairs themselves, right? That'll work. Number two, the sellers can provide buyers with a credit for the cost of repairs. So when I bought my house in Key Largo a couple years ago, I had probably half a dozen things. I had the normal double tap thing, the normal GFI, this and that, and whatever, a few things. And I asked him, I didn't ask him for too much. I didn't ask him for too little. I asked for 15, and I knew they'd come back with half of it, and that's what I really wanted. So I asked in lieu of them doing anything, I just wanted a $15,000 credit. They said, we'll give you 8. I said, you got it. You got a deal, right? That worked for me. So you can provide recommendations to your seller for people that can handle these kind of repairs, right? Be careful when you make a recommendation that you give them more than one, because when you recommend somebody, you own the result, whether you think you do or not. You may end up owning it, right? So some of the items on the big inspection list may be minor things and can be grouped all together, but you want to make sure that the last thing is the very most important. Everything that they agree to has to be fully agreed to on an addendum and fully executed before the expiration of the inspection period, right? You want it all outlined and you want it exactly what's going to happen, and you want both of them to sign it. You got to get it done before the end of the inspection period. Any questions? All right, we're getting close, right? We got 17 minutes. So avoid appraisal issues. Caroline, have you ever had appraisal issues? Caroline left. Has anybody ever had an appraisal issue?
Yepper.
Yes.
Yeah. So what happened?
Depends on which appraisal. If it
Yeah,
came
the
in.
appraisal came in low, right?
I have had appraisal come in low. And in that particular situation, the buyer decided they wanted the property bad enough. So they made up the difference with a cash difference for what it appraised for and what we were under contract for.
Right. So the bank was okay with it,
Yep.
but they just had to bring extra money,
Correct.
right? The bank was okay with, so that was good that they were able to do that. So one of the things that you can try to do is, as the listing agent, the appraiser is going to be calling you. Funny, the appraiser never really calls the buyer's agent, so you may want to keep in communication with the listing agent to find out when the appraiser calls so you can be involved in it too. But a lot of agents will give them some comps or their CMA, give them some detailed list of updates and things they've done to make the home more valuable, right?
Yeah.
Or give them some information that the appraiser may not know, like, sample script here, the property was in pre-foreclosure, fallen into disrepair, or the property's been a rental for 10 years. Here are 3 other comps of sales that are similar to this one. Maybe you should use those instead, right? So appraisals lower than the agreed upon contract price are a reality, right? The selling and the price and the actual value don't always meet, right? So, the bank won't lend on that, right? Because essentially what this is reiterating is the bank actually owns a good portion of the home because the debt is theirs. So they just want to make sure that their loan is covered. So two options, right? As Natalie said, her buyers or whoever it was in her deal offered to cover the difference, right? To keep the loan to value ratio correct. Or the seller could actually reduce the sales price too. I've seen that done.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, I've had a similar situation where the seller came down a little and then the buyers added more to their deposit or their down payment.
Yeah. Split the difference.
Yeah.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Okay, so once the negotiations are complete, the home's been appraised. Normally, everything is pretty straightforward. You're going to reconfirm the buyer's been approved. They provided all the documentation. Uh, you want to try to find out from the other agent, if they foresee a problem with anything like being self-employed or loan type or, whatever. But always advise your clients of accepting an offer from a more qualified borrower, right? It may be a better option for somebody to accept a contract for a little bit less with a greater assurance that it's going to close, right? Than a wing and a prayer and a higher price. So the more proof that you can get of that, the better. And then this is something that I want you to take a leadership role in, right? So this is lines 106 and 110 of the contract,
Mhm.
right? And it says buyer shall, upon written request, right? So that's your written request. You as a listing agent make written request for the buyer and their mortgage broker and their lender and the closing agent to be able to discuss the status of the loan with you. All you have to do is make a written request, and they've agreed by signing the contract to give you a line of communication with their lender. So if the selling agent, the buyer's agent is not communicating with you on the status of the loan, you can't get through to anybody. I hear you guys complain all the time. They won't call me back. Nobody will call me back. Get right to it and call the lender, tell them you give them a written request and then get a hold of the lender. And if the lender won't call you back, call their boss, right?
So you're saying that, so I would send a request to the buyer's agent to provide me with that information? Is that how it goes?
Yep, this is a note from Nyrus. Dear Mr. Selling Agent, please consider this a request to keep us fully informed about the status of the mortgage loan application, the loan process, the appraisal, and the loan approval. You can use this wording right here.
Right.
The wording's right there.
Yeah,
Right?
and you only have to do that one time. Okay, you don't have to do it throughout the process every time you want to talk to the lender. If I may, Jeff, the only issue you may have with the lender is they're going to say, I'm not a party to this contract. I don't have to talk to you. And that is true.
Yeah.
Oh, really? You
You're not a
can't just,
party to the contract. There's nothing that compels the lender to talk to you.
I've had
huh.
that.
I have in the, it's actually going to be in the chat. Okay, this is a questionnaire that I've used for many, many years about questions a mortgage broker can legally answer. So if you look at that, you'll see there's 10 questions on there that you can ask a mortgage broker that they can answer without divulging anything that would be illegal for them to divulge. But it'll keep your stuff on track. And generally, I would ask these questions in advance when when we first are looking at the contract, when the offer comes in, to find out if we have a good shot at closing. So use it if you like. If you don't, that's fine too.
Right. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Frank. So again, take a leadership role. Be that little toothy chihuahua biting at somebody's ankles all the time. So then you've got finally you've kind of got navigating your contingencies, whatever they are, right? Could be a lot of them. Could have something to do with the appraisal, additional repairs, financing, sale of buyer's existing home. You got to keep track of all that. So let's look at this. The fact we have an offer is a great beginning. pre-expose your seller to the process and how things are going to play out. Explain to them about the loan approval deadline and the inspection process and the inspection deadline and any other deadlines. They don't know how this stuff works. Don't keep them in the dark. Give it all to them, right? So you're required per the MLS rules to change the status of your listing. It depends on which MLS you're in as to what the rules are, but you should probably change it to something other than active when it's fully under contract, right? And then prepare your seller for the closing date. You might make your own custom checklist that you give to all your sellers, you know. Let them know about when they can expect to receive their settlement statement, right? Remind them that they've got to have a current ID, right? Uh, Let them know that generally the buyer and the seller are not going to be like in the same room at the same time. Yeah. They're going to be signing at different times. Many times the seller will sign way in advance because of some issue. And then the buyer generally, especially if there's a loan, it's going to be right down to the very last day, right? Know the process for dispersing funds to seller, right? So I
Right.
can tell you right now, there's a high probability that your seller is not going to get their money on the day of closing.
Exactly.
And a lot of them don't know that, and it really pisses them off when they find out. They've gone through all this, and now it's Friday, and Monday's a holiday, and I'm not going to get my money till Tuesday. What happens? Okay. Uh,
I'm always very upfront when you're talking about closing time frames, like, because in the contract it says that the title company has all the funds, we're officially closed, because a lot of sellers won't want to give the keys or whatnot if that scenario, like you just said, happens. So preparing them up front is key to what you to your success at the end of the day.
it's
You
kind of
don't
like
get somebody
Brian.
yelling
Yeah.
at you.
Right. It's like Brian always tells you guys when you have a listing, if you disclose a condition of the property to the buyer before they buy it, it's never a problem. If you disclose something that they should have known after they bought it, it's always a problem, right? So get ahead of it. So the contract, I just cut and pasted a couple things. Line 65 in the as is says seller shall at closing deliver occupancy and possession of the property. Okay. Says at closing, right? If we're using the Monroe County local rider, it further defines that, and it says it amends paragraph 6, right? Says unless otherwise agreed, occupancy and possession shall be conveyed to buyer upon collection of closing funds, right? That's part 2. Part 3 is the definition of collection is on line 543. Collection means any checks tendered or received, including deposits, have become actually and finally collected and deposited in the account of the escrow agent or closing agent. It doesn't say in the account of the seller, right? So if the money is at the title company, all the money's at the title company or the attorney's office, the buyer gets the keys. They get possession. Is anybody confused about that?
Not confused, but I can see where that would be kind of like an aggravating thing for sellers. Is that something that we could put in the additional terms and say collection is when funds are in
You
seller's
have it.
account, or you wouldn't recommend that?
It's
It's in the
already in
contract.
here. It's
It's in
already
the
there.
contract, Caitlin.
I think just having this slide as a reference when you're meeting with your seller I mean, that's what I think I'm gonna do, is it just makes it clear to show real, real quick and easy, an explanation.
That's why we want you to use the Monroe, one of the reasons we want you to use the Monroe County local rider, right?
Yeah.
Not all you guys use it, I don't know why, but
Oh, I
okay.
do.
And that's
So
another
get it.
reason, hence why I don't like closings on Fridays.
Holidays or even
Exactly.
holidays
I
Yes,
try not to
just
close
pay
on a
attention.
Friday.
Pay
or
attention
a
when you're doing
holiday.
closing dates.
Yeah,
Tuesday,
midweek.
Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are the best
Mhm.
closing
Yep.
days.
Yeah, or even when if somebody you have like if it's they don't put an actual date, if it's 45 days from closing, I still count out if we go effective and if it lands, I'd try to put a date in there.
Mhm.
Yeah, I hate when it's like 45 days from
Yeah.
something. Just give me a date. I need it simple. I'm too old.
But the benefit to not having a date is if you get hung up in negotiations and you don't keep track of the closing date as you're negotiating a basic offer, you're eating up time. That's the only problem is I've seen it happen that you guys just don't, you're negotiating back and forth that original offer. You're not paying attention to the closing date.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
I like always to base everything off the effective date because then everything automatically changes. That's why you use that contract critical dates checklist.
Exactly.
So you want to get ahead of collecting the keys, the garage door, the gate openers. Agents are famous for not getting condominium mailbox keys. Make sure you got the keys for the
Yeah.
mailbox. That'll cost them a fortune and a big hassle if the post office has to come out and rekey the mailbox for the condominium. If there's a storage unit in the on the property or a key to the lift. A lot of these lifts, my lift in Naples used to have a key to turn the boat lift on and off. You want to get all that and a remote for that. So, but you don't give them to anybody before the closing. You wait until you're officially closed. And as we predefined, the buyer gets possession, then you can give the key, right? So just a thought. We've got 1 minute. What are some great closing gifts? A lot of agents give gifts. If it's a luxury island property, Brian gives you an autographed, book, the map book for the keys. Beautiful, beautiful gift is free for you. Get them a gift card or a gift basket or, so tell them you appreciate them, right? So post-closing activities, right? Nobody is going to go collect your money for you except you. So make an arrangement to get your commission check or your wire and the settlement statement. We've got to have the settlement statement and the money to pay you, right? Submit the dot loop closing folder to your AOM for review. So that the sooner we get that, and the sooner everything's together, the sooner you get paid. If there's a lockbox, remove it. If there's a lawn sign, remove it. It's your responsibility to close out the listing in the MLSs. I should have added plural MLSs. If it's in Flex, close it out. If it's in Miami, close it out, right? It's your job to order the just sold cards through however Nicole has you do that. I'm not sure Frank would know more about how to record a sale on Zillow or Trulia. Frank, is there a special
Automatically go on
effect for that?
For it to close in Zillow and
Yeah,
Trulia?
so is there a way they claim a sale in their Zillow or Trulia profile?
Only if they have an account, it should happen automatically because Zillow and Trulia now share information. So it just happens automatically when it's posted.
Nicole's going to send the survey out, to get a review for you. You can also somehow, I think, have Zillow send a review. Can be very effective and easy. Make a follow-up call to them. Send them a thank you note. Give them a gift. Make a social media post. Right. I think that's it. And we're 1 minute
And
behind.
if you use a St. Joseph statue, don't forget to remove him.
That's that thing you put in upside down by the front door?
Yes, I have had
Yes,
many
yes.
sellers do that.
Yeah.
Myself have actually done it, and then they remember to remove
Right. Anybody have any questions? I hope you can use this kind of as a blueprint to not forget something. That's my goal, to have you not forget something. Because we all forget things all the time, and sometimes it will cost you money. Yeah. So,
Good stuff. Thank you.
all right. You guys
Yeah,
have a
thanks,
wonderful
Jeff.
day. We appreciate you coming on. Tell your
Thank
friends that missed
you.
something. And we'll have these slides uploaded and back at you eventually, so you can print them out. Okay?
Great.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Have a good
Bye.
Thanks,
day.
Jeff.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.